Okay, so this is the second part of the Nacelles build for the Polar Lights Enterprise Refit 1/350th scale. So if you saw the first video, it had to do with everything I was doing with prepping these and basically installing all of my wiring and lighting. And now this one's mainly going to be about final assembly and paint. So we're going to talk about that. As it relates to wiring and lighting, something that wasn't covered in the last video was actually this piece over here, which I installed a blue 5mm LED light, and I used my old friend liquid tape, and I used that to suspend it sort of halfway through the part over here. So that's going to be positioned right below the Kristal. We'll talk more about the Kristal when I get to that point of installing it, maybe some things that I'm going to be doing, okay? So as it relates to what you're looking at here, some other progress that's been made is that I actually ended up putting down a base coat of some white. I used Tamiya XF2 flat white, okay? So I did that on both sides, alright? And then what I did was I went ahead and I used 6000 grit sandpaper, sanded it down, and took care of some little blemishes, but I also had some coarse spots that I needed to get smoothed out, and so these have all been taken care of. One thing you probably noted in the last video is that I did have my black primer down, but there was some areas that I actually did some of the white painting. Well, I decided just to get it all done and taken care of here, so I went ahead and did that. Now, one thing you do want to note is that you definitely want to get your white down before you put on the chiller grill. I know some people are like, duh, but you know, there are other people that might, you know, want to mask this and just go, I'm just going to go ahead and mask this. Well, the thing is that there's little ledges here underneath that you can see, and over here, that you definitely don't want to struggle with that after the fact, okay? So maybe the solution to that is use a white primer on the outside and then paint, and then you don't have to worry about that. You can mask this afterwards. So of course I'm going to have to mask this once I put the second one down, but at least I have a base down in there that's been taken care of for me already, okay? So just something to note. Alright, so on the inside, as it relates to the chiller grills, we're still talking about those. As you can see, they're not well assembled, but I am using 3 strips that I cut of this frosted styrene. So it's this transparent frosted styrene. I'm just going to lay this back in here. And I tried one, I tried a second, and then of course I settled on 3, and I was really pleased with the results. I have to say that I don't know if the camera's going to pick it up well, but in person it gives a very gentle light. It's not overpowering. It has this very nice, I think what the chiller grills should be and what they look like in the film. They're very gentle tone to them. So the 3 was really nice. Again, I'll put up on screen down below. You can get anything you're seeing that I'm using here. I put links to everything, but I'll put up on screen the details of the actual sheet that I use. So if you're looking for some, you can find those online or something comparable. So there's that. Now, as it relates to the components, what I love about this model is that, you know, Polar Lights, you know, figure for like $100 you can get something a little better than that. But anyways, it's pretty much almost like spilling Lego on the ground and saying there's a nacelle in here somewhere, just go ahead and build it, these are all the parts. Because there's nothing really here, if you haven't done the model yet, there's nothing really here that really tells you what to do first in what order. It's just what you're looking at is, these are all the parts, these are the 2 nacelles, this is where they go, have fun. So I've had to do a lot of research, as you're probably doing right now watching this video, trying to figure out, you know, what goes first, etc. So basically, as it relates to what I've done so far, is I did go ahead and install the top part here in the front, and also the the front piece as well. Okay, so that's a given that I had to get those in right away, and this is where the Kristal goes in as well. I think I probably will be installing that. We'll see if I can install it before I assemble everything together, but I'll get to that point sooner or later. The one thing you need to know is that the advantage of putting this, of course, well, you have to put this in now, so the advantage of getting this in here right away is that there is some light leak coming through here that you can address pretty easily on the inside. When you close this up on the other side, I don't know what to expect, but there's probably going to be the equivalent of light leak on the other side, and that'll have to be dressed from the outside. Okay, so I may use some gap filling glue for that. Okay, just I'll see. And what's going to happen, and I'll just let you know. I'm just getting started on this part. So there's that to deal with. On the rear side, this is probably the component that I guess is the most tricky, just because of there's so many little moving parts here, and then you've got to put the other side on. You've got this piece, which is going to go something like this, I believe. I mean, if it goes the other way, then that's fine too, but let's just go with it like this. Then I've got these, this piece first. This comes with the kit, and you can see here that I sanded this down. There is some beveled parts on here that I got rid of because I'm using the photo etch component by Paragraph. Pull up the link down there from below so you can pick this up. I want to say, you can get these all over the place, so shop around for it, because there's different hobby stores that are carrying these. I've seen them for around 30 bucks, 35 bucks, you see some 40, whatever, I don't know. But anyways, just shop around for those. So this goes on top over here. It lines up nicely. I'm not doing a very good job free-forming it right now, but basically it lines up very nicely. You know where it's supposed to go. This is a bigger piece by design because it's covering the whole back. Okay, so it's when you look at it at first, you'll be like, what, that's not the same size? Well, yeah, it's not for a reason. So that's the way it's going to end up being. Okay, and that slides in there. And then the last thing is just to note is that it's my understanding that these three pieces fit together somehow. Okay, again, I'll get to that part. These pieces fit together somehow together, and but they have to be installed before you actually put in the wing itself. Okay, now I will let you know how this works out. I think I'm about the first person I've seen do it this way. You can see I've got my finishing done on here, where this has been all put together, and the light has already been installed. Most people I've seen has been installing the light first and just sticking the bulb out and then somehow putting it in here after the fact. And I thought, you know what, like, it kind of makes sense. I can see that, but it looks, I'd probably want to get all this work out of the way first and just put that in. So I'll let you know if I made a mistake or not. So we'll take it from there. So that'll be installed. We're good to go. Okay, so here's a bit of a progress update. As I mentioned, there's some light leaking here that needs to be addressed. So I went ahead and I actually used liquid tape again. This is actually the first time I've used liquid tape to light block, and it's really good. I don't necessarily believe that it may be applicable to all scenarios, but at the same time, it's very thick, very clumpy, and so you don't want to use the applicator that comes with the bottle on the inside. I'll show you down in the lower third here what this sort of looks like, the kind of mess it is. But what I did was I just took some of these smaller swabs, and I just used what I needed. So I didn't go to town on this. I just, basically put some stuff in here, and it just took one pass. It's thick, it's dark, it's rubbery, there's no light coming through. So the real challenge is going to be, what am I going to do when I get these same light leak issues on the other side? I haven't got to that point yet, but I'll let you know how I'm going to take care of that. So that's taken care of. Started some of the rear assembly over here. I want to talk about this very quickly. Is that, and I apologize, but I'm not up on my enterprise anatomy, so don't know what all these pieces are referenced or called. So this piece here, the horseshoe piece that I've put in over here, that slides in, it fits very well. And then there is a wing piece at the bottom, a fin that goes here, and that slides right in there. So these three pieces, the full side and then this piece and this piece, they all sort of fit together well. There is some spacing issues over here on the side that you see, but if you're using the Paragraph photo etch piece that goes on top of this, then you're not going to have to worry about that, okay? So I'm just putting that on like that, and you can see it fits very well. It's going to cover the entire rear, okay? That's the plan. And then it also has a little notch over here for the wings on the side and the back, these guys, okay? So, oops, hold on a second. This over here, okay? So that's going to go on first, I believe, and then the wing on the back, okay? What else can I say about this is that the only thing I noticed that I'm not sure if I have to address or how I'm going to address it, but there is a little bit of space, there is a little bit of a gap in here that sort of narrows down towards the end, and you can see maybe down in there's a little bit of space, not that much. I noticed it most on the side here, and I did do whatever I could to get that clamped down. It just seems to be that's the way it is, and of course there are many observations by people that throughout the build and different parts, etc., that there are some structural challenges that people have in different areas, so this may be one of them. I'm not sure whether or not closing this up with the other side of the nacelle will fix that, so I'll let you know later on in the video. Alright, as it relates to the other side of the nacelle, let's talk about this very quickly. I went ahead and I took the clear pieces that were used for the Kristal that's going to be resting right above the light here, okay? So I took that and I painted them this. This is going to be Tamiya X23 gloss blue, okay? Now, so if you look at the actual Enterprise, the studio model, this is blue, okay? And I think it's hard to tell whether or not it may be even a darker blue, but I went with this one instead, mainly because I had it in stock. So I'm pleased with that. Check the results. You'll see it come together when it's finished, but I do want to mention that it'll be very nice because even in some rough testing here, you know, it's not giving you that really bright floodlight look. It's a very somber, gentle light up here. So very, very nice. Pleased with those results. Can't wait to see them in action. You'll see that soon. Now, as it relates to the balance of this piece, I actually came across a detour of something that I felt that I needed to do, and I'll explain why. Over here is a component where you're going to have a small clear lens. Okay, so this piece over here, this clear lens, is going to go down into the nacelle right here, and it fits very well. Okay, now if you recall from the previous videos, this was all white. What I did is I went ahead and I painted this black immediately. Okay, so I painted on the inside black, got in all the spaces over here, and then on the outside, I ended up using, by the way, the black is Tamiya Flat Black XF1, okay? And so I went ahead and I got in here and I painted this black, and I did it on both sides because it's very hard to get in there otherwise. But the importance of this is because of the grooves that you have here, okay? I felt I would get better results and not have to worry about this when I'm masking this later on and painting the rest, because once that lens is in there, which has to be applied first because obviously you're closing this up, is that once the lens is in there, it's going to be a challenge with some of those grooves to do some masking. Okay, so this way I can get a consistent black base down in here, put the lens in, not have to worry about it after the fact. And then it doesn't even make a difference whether or not I choose to do another shade of black or lighten this up or whatever, because the fact of the matter is that it's better to have that dark coat down here and then not see it later on than it is to have some spots of white and have to get in there and do whatever. Okay, so that was a decision I made to do that, and I think it's going to pay off. Alright, keep on moving. Alright, so this is my test assembly of the two pieces put together, and I'll talk about some of the details in a moment, but a couple of notes. Some good news, first of all, fits together very nicely, and more importantly, I was able to take this apart a couple of times, at least 2 or 3 times. You need to be very careful with working the parts out, not to damage anything, but you can, even though they fasten in very well, you can take them apart relatively easily. The other thing that everybody should note about, if you haven't got to this part, is when you're handling this, be very careful about not touching the chiller, or at least applying any pressure here. So when you're make a conscious effort to try and handle both sides when you're snapping pieces in and across the top here, etc. And be very careful about getting your thumb or any other fingers to apply some pressure here. I've done this, I'm sure some other people have had as well, and you catch yourself quick enough because you can easily break this. Okay, so I've got some notes here to show you. I'm gonna assemble the lighting here. Hopefully this doesn't start flickering on me. It's a very cheap assembly with the lighting, but I wanted to go ahead and share with you a couple things to note. So first of all, as I turn it on, as you saw earlier in the video, this on camera comes across very white. There's too much white in this blue, and in real life the blue looks a lot like what you're seeing here. Okay, so I really don't know why it doesn't portray that in the camera, but again, I assure you that this is blue, so it's very nice. So nothing really to add here other than the fact that this has been diffused by as I mentioned earlier, I've used 3 pieces of frosted plastic, okay, sheets of plastic, and you can see that the diffusion is very, very nice. Hopefully that comes across on camera just as nice as it does in person. And I used some Canopy Glue to glue the pieces together just on the ends, and then I went ahead and I used a little bit more glue just to glue them down to the actual chiller itself. Okay, so they're in there, and if I needed to, you know, I can easily take them out. Not that I plan on doing that, but they're glued well enough that they're going to stay in there very well. Now the next thing is that at the top I went ahead and I applied the Kristal, and again on camera this is coming out very white, but in real life it is just as blue, like I said, as this. As a matter of fact, this is the blue, and I made a mistake calling this out earlier. It's clear blue X23. It's not gloss blue, it's clear blue. Okay, but there is a gloss shine to it. Okay, so there's that. In the front, well, let's start with the rear. Over here you can see I have the I'll turn this off, but it's not going to do it any better. You can see here I have the this is going to be the rear navigation light, and this is going to be hooked up to the Tele controls boards, and so it'll be blinking. Okay, the rest of them are constant. And then of course here I have the little wing off to the side, and this is lit, and I'll be putting that into place. You'll see that mounted in the next video. I'm not expecting much trouble from that. What I'll be doing in that case here is just feeding the wire in. I've just got enough slack that I can put that in, and then I'll just be fixing that the way it needs to be fixed. As far as the rear of the actual, let me just see if I can get this closer for you. The rear component, you know, there's no real light leaking or anything, but as I said, that's going to be covered up here anyways, but it went very well. Now, one of the things I was talking about in the previous part of the video, this actually does fit kind of tight here. The fin, okay, does actually fit kind of tight here now that this has been assembled and closed up on it. Okay, so that's not really anything I'll have to worry about going forward, which is a nice relief. Alright, over here in the front, I've got the 2 floodlights in the front over here, so very pleased with those. And the only other thing I will say is I'm going to turn off this light so you can see is that there is still going to be a bit of light leak here that I'm going to have to deal with, okay, on either side. Now, I did actually have to take this apart, and this front piece had to come out, and that's why you're seeing light leak on both sides, okay? So that's very important getting this. There's little grooves in here that I had to get it in. It wasn't coming through, so it's one of the reasons why I had to take it apart. And then working with the piece, it didn't break, but it did come out, so now I have to deal with this light leak over here, and then there's light leak at the bottom. This is probably going to be, you know, if you want to call it the trickiest, just because it's around these parts that have details and so on and so forth, so I'm probably going to be using some sort of glue to fill that, and then once it's filled, just go over it with paint, and hopefully that'll solve the problem. Everything else is pretty straightforward. You can see that here that this is obviously going to be taken care of. I mean, just even squeezing on this, you know, it's closing it up more. So I'm not really going to concern myself too much with what you're seeing here. That's just standard stuff. Now, the last thing I do want to share with you is that, remember the window I was telling you about on the side over here? This part right here. So I went ahead and I put that in here and I just doused it with Canopy Glue on the back. But before I permanently fastened it, one of the things that I did was when I installed it, it's a clear piece obviously, and I really didn't like the clear look because you can sort of see inside, and it's not the fact that you can really see details in here, but when you have different lights in here, then you're getting these different effects and so on, and it's just, it looked kind of nasty. And this does serve a purpose to giving some sort of accent over here, not much. So what you can see is that if it's coming out on camera, I did go ahead and sand the piece down on both sides, okay? So it gives it more of a duller look as far as the light that's there. Now I don't see any hot spots or anything like that in there, so something worthwhile doing. I'll turn that off again, and you can see that the effect is really, really nice, okay? Do it. So first of all, as you can see here, I'm in final stages of just prepping this area over here to be sanded, okay? And I'm using Tamiya Putty, okay, for this, and I'm also using, in some cases, the super glue, okay? So in cases where I have harder to reach areas, and I'll be talking about that in just a moment, but harder to reach areas or just spotting up some filling areas rather than going through this process again, it's just easy to dab the glue on there and get it done, okay? Now I would tell you that I didn't expect to sand as much as I have with this part. I don't know if this is everybody else's experience, but I've literally spent the weekend on the puttying and the sanding and the filling and so on, okay? So, you know, you're seeing everything here all around, and then of course on the bottom areas here. I know it looks awful, but as you know from experience, it'll look fine when we get it painted. Now I want to talk to you about the biggest problem that I've had in this was the actual tail fin itself over here, okay? First of all, you're probably going, well, wasn't it black in the previous segment? Yes, I actually attached the wrong one, and so I had to cut that off, and then I went ahead and I soldered it back in here. But everything that happened back here took an amazing amount of time, and I'm still spot checking some things just to make sure that everything is going to be fine. So as you can see, I went ahead and I did put in the photo etch part in the back here, okay? So I did apply the photo etch part first, and then I put the wing on. This was the fin was the last part to this, okay? Now you've probably seen other people building this as well. You know what, the little pegs that are in there, good luck with that, okay? Because they did not fit, they both broke off, and I, even before applying them in here, had drilled the holes just a little bit. I widened them a little bit more. This part does not cooperate, at least it did not for me. And there was a lot of space to be filled back here, so there was a lot of gap filling on the side. I won't say that there was that much on the bottom and the top. It's a very, very tight fit to begin with, but there was some spots in the front here which I went ahead and I filled, and then I just really took care of the small, almost invisible seam here, but I just wanted to be transparent 100%. Having to go around here a couple of times was a bit of a challenge too. So in here as well, there's so many little spots in here that have to be connected and sanded and whatnot, okay? So that's all been tightened up, and of course I had to tighten this up, not just for the sake of you know, of getting in those areas, but because you can't have the light leak coming out on the sides here, okay? So I've got lights in here now, so they'd be sticking out on the side, and I can already see that I'm going to have to do just a little bit more sanding here, okay? So good luck with this piece. This piece is a real challenge to work with. Very, very stubborn working on getting this in here. So, you know, anyways, that's all I can say about that. The last thing I'll share with you is that I did go ahead and use the, such a mess here, the Kristal Klear, and I did add it in all of the places where there is lights, okay? So that's how I filled up my lighting, and of course I sanded them down just a little bit over here, and I've got the lights in the front as well, so that's all been covered up with the Kristal Klear over here, and it's flush with the surface. Alright, so for the front, I was talking to you about some light leak that I had in the front, okay? And I haven't addressed that yet as far as painting, but what I did was I went to I think a local hobby store, and I picked up some of these bad boys. Okay, so this is like almost a very fine syringe. If I can find one online again, you'll see the link down below. And this was really helpful. So it's, I say a syringe, it's not, it's more of a funnel, but it's very fine. You can see how small that actually is. And what I did was I combined using this with my gap filling glue, and I put that in here, and then it's very thick, the glue itself, at least this one. So I just let it run down, okay, and then as it got to the end, I was able to get in there and fill some of these really small parts with glue. And in that way, you know, I mean, there's nothing you can do to sand in where that is. You just have to put something in there. That was the perfect size to end up doing something like that. And then I'm able to paint that when it's done, and hopefully the light blocking will sit into place. Now, if it didn't work, I'm just going to use the exact same technique again and go over the spots that did. I was able to, you know, close this up as well. I put some glue in here and closed this tighter, and that actually got rid of about probably 95% of what was there, which wasn't much to begin with. So I'm only dealing with a few small spots, and it's really nice because all I have to do is just turn on the lights and then see where I have to apply this, and I'm good to go. So now it will be the final segment that I finish sanding this, and hopefully the next thing you'll see is a painted version. Thanks for watching.